Bring in show music, please.
Hi, I'm CNBC producer Katie Kramer. Today on Squawk Pod. Shutdown, day 9, and no end in sight to reopen the U.S. government. Two key players back to back. Senate Majority Leader Republican John Thune.
They are pandering to the left-wing special interest groups out there who have demanded this and demanded this showdown with the President of the United States.
And House Minority Leader Democrat Hakeem Jeffries.
The law requires everyone to be paid, and unfortunately, Donald Trump has once again suggested that no one is going to get paid.
Phase 1 of a Gaza peace plan agreed to by Israel and Hamas. Our Eamon Javers with the details.
There's cautious optimism in Washington today, and the emphasis may be on cautious.
And the Council on Foreign Relations' Michael Froman on the next steps.
I think the next stages are harder because effectively President Trump is asking Hamas to stop being Hamas.
All that and the rest of today's news.
It said right there, we know you like Fritos. Oh my God, did it.
It is Thursday, October 9th, 2025. Squawk Pod begins right now.
Stand Becky by in 3, 2, 1. Cue it, please.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Squawk Box right here on CNBC. We're live from the NASDAQ market site in Times Square. I'm Becky Quick, along with Joe Kernen and Andrew Ross Sorkin.
I was just dealing with people from the Middle East, our people and other people on the potential peace deal for the Middle East. Peace for the Middle East, it's a beautiful phrase, and we hope it's going to come true, but it's very close.
President Trump is saying Israel and Hamas have agreed to an initial phase of a plan to end the war in Gaza. Eamon Javers is in Washington this morning. And he has the details. Where are we, Eamon?
Yeah, good morning, Andrew. It was a bit of a dramatic moment at the White House yesterday as President Trump was engaged in an unrelated roundtable, and suddenly Secretary of State Marco Rubio walked into the room.
Come on up here, Marco. Anything we should know about the Middle East?
The president looked over at Rubio. Rubio handed him a note and then went over and whispered in his ear.
Yeah, I was just given a note by the Secretary of State saying that we're very close to a deal in the Middle East.
Apparently what Rubio told the president was they were very, very close to a peace deal, and they needed the president to approve a Truth Social post in order to be the first one to announce the deal. That came a couple of hours later in the evening last night. Here's what the president put up on Truth Social, if we can call that up. He said, "I'm very proud to announce that Israel and Hamas have both signed off on the first phase of our peace plan. This means that all of the hostages will be released very soon, and Israel will withdraw all their troops to an agreed-upon line as the first steps toward a strong, durable, and everlasting peace. All parties will be treated fairly. This is a great day for the Arab and Muslim world, Israel, all surrounding nations, and the United States of America. And we thank the mediators from Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey who worked with us to make this historic and unprecedented event happen. Blessed are the peacemakers." So that's the president talking about this first phase and hostages being released very soon. What does that mean? Well, a White House official tells NBC News that there are certain expectations here. One is that the deal has to go to the cabinet of Israel today, Thursday, for a vote. If they vote yes, then Israel will withdraw to an agreed-upon area within 24 hours after that vote takes place. Then Hamas has 72 hours to release hostages, and the White House now expects those hostages to begin to be released on Monday. So that's where we stand in terms of the logistics of what this first phase might mean. Then the big question, guys, coming up is whether we see travel from President Trump. He hinted yesterday that he'll be making the rounds of the region. Not sure exactly what that means. Seems to indicate multiple stops in the region, possibly Egypt, where negotiations have been taking place. But the president clearly viewing this as a big foreign policy win, and he's going to want to go over and put his stamp on it and participate in some of the events surrounding the end of this war, if that's what we end up seeing here, depending on these votes and how things go. Folks I'm talking to overnight say one of the big things to be wary of here is domestic Israeli political opinion about this. You know, how does this play in Israel domestically? So there are still some stumbling blocks potentially out there. But for now, this looks like we could be on path to see the hostages released by Monday, guys. Back over to you.
I was going to ask you, which is, what do you think the opinion is right now in Israel? What is the prospect that this happens in real time the way it's being described? And if we talk about this a week, two, a month from now, are we really there?
It's a good question. You know how many false starts there have been on Middle East peace, right? I mean, people have been trying to do this for decades and generations. It is a very tricky, intractable problem. I mean, I think one of the questions is just militarily, the reality on the ground for Hamas. How badly devastated have they been? It may be at the point now where they simply don't have the leadership, command and control, military resources to continue to engage in fighting, and they are willing to stand down for some period of time and maybe regroup for some future effort, and sort of take a pause here. And a pause is a win in the Middle East if you look at the history there. So maybe that's it. And then the question is Israeli public opinion. Netanyahu apparently told President Trump, who said this in an interview last night, that he is extraordinarily popular now as a result of this deal. So maybe the Netanyahu administration feels that this is a win for them as well. And they've got their finger on the pulse of public opinion there, certainly better than I do. But we'll see. I think there's cautious optimism in Washington today, and the emphasis may be on cautious.
Eamon, it would be historic and a remarkable thing for the world, a remarkable thing for this administration. And thank you this morning. Appreciate it.
You bet.
Third quarter results just hitting from PepsiCo. Earnings there coming in at $2.29 a share. That was 3 cents ahead of estimates. Revenue coming in at $23.9 billion, also topping expectations. The company says that it now expects adjusted earnings to decline by about 0.5% for the full year. That's an improvement from the prior guidance and better than Wall Street had anticipated. Pepsi also naming Steve Schmidt as the EVP and CFO. That's effective November 10th. Outgoing CFO Jamie Caulfield is going to be retiring next year after 30 years with the company. You can see that stock right now off by about 63 cents. But guys, what they're doing in the release that they're putting out with this is kind of pointing out that they're going to be aggressively targeting, trying to improve things at the food business, at the food division.
Organic revenue growth too, right?
Yeah, organic revenue growth as well. But one of the things they're really talking about is they say they expect the business to remain resilient, but they are going to be very closely looking at this, aggressively prioritizing faster organic revenue growth and improving their core. Improving the food department's performance is a top priority. They say they're laser focused on improving their marketplace competitiveness, accelerating business momentum, and improving their profitability in the coming months and quarters. Also say basically they're going to be listening to just about anybody and everybody, that they take all of their shareholder views into account, which makes it sound like they are either thinking they're going to be getting an activist investor that comes in or trying to ward off activist investors saying, we see the problems here, we're going to
They don't just listen to those people. I think they listen to customers too.
About what they like.
Do they watch the show? Did you get your...
What did you get? I didn't break into it.
It said right there, we know you like Fritos. Oh my God. I mean, they're not bribing me, although it is like the finest company and the stock is so cheap here. But no, I'm kidding. They're not bribing me. But yeah, I got some chili cheese. I got some regular.
Right up your alley.
And it said
chili
we
cheese
know.
Fritos?
Yeah, we know you like Fritos. And it's, did you get your bag? They send you all kale chips, right? Because they know, the sort of the kale or the, I don't know, what are the cauliflower things or. Did you get your bag?
I don't know. I arrived home late last night. I'm not sure.
Can you call one of the door people or handlers or whatever?
Staff.
One of your staff.
Staff is what you're referring to. Can I call one of the staff?
Can you call one of your?
And find
You got
out.
one, right? Did you look?
I didn't look.
How can you? I wasn't even home, and I found out what was in.
I don't know, but look, the language around this is a little different than what we've heard in the past. PepsiCo Foods North American continues to work towards improving its performance trajectory with a high sense of urgency. They do say the business made good progress on advancing permissible snack offerings, deploying more efficient trade promotional programs, and aggressively reducing costs. Elevated promotional activity at the Frito-Lay and strong performance within Quaker Foods. They go on and on about this, but there's a lot of talk here. What they did say is doing well, things like pork rinds, sun chips, unflavored tortilla chips. They are gaining market share in those areas. But guys, you could probably tie this to some of the broader trends we've seen with people wanting to make sure that they're very, very conscious about the carbs they're putting into their body, be very conscious about the snacks that they're eating in these ways.
Are they, though? I think we've come back to anything in moderation. Yeah, exactly. Anything in moderation. The question is, who's got the right business model, Coke or Pepsi?
Yeah, good question.
Because I thought it was Pepsi, but then for a while we
Coca-Cola's
thought it
done very
wasn't
well,
Pepsi. Right.
Yeah.
Because we understand this
Actually,
is...
check this out. Shares are up 1.5%. They were down initially when we first reported this, and now you can see the shares are up 1.5%. So maybe the street likes seeing that they are going to be taking aggressive tactics.
You had Jensen Huang on.
Yes, yesterday.
It was awesome. Sorry we missed that, but it was great. And he talks about synergy. He wants to be involved with anything Elon Musk is doing. I think that's really interesting.
XAI, I'm super excited about the financing opportunity that they're doing. You know, the only regret I have about XAI, we're an investor already. The only regret I have is I didn't give him more money. You know, almost everything that Elon's part of, you really want to be part of as well. And he gave us the opportunity to invest in XAI. I'm just delighted by that. And so that's an investment into a really great future company, and I'm really excited about that. That's not vendor financing per se.
So he sees how his chips and Elon's stuff, all that. For me, I see
other types of chips that go together.
Right, well, no, for me, I see salty food with soft drinks. See,
You have always been a fan of the...
I understand that.
Yeah.
Remember when Smucker's bought, they had peanut butter and jelly. Okay,
Yeah.
and then they made those little things. So I understand those things. What else did you find from Jensen yesterday? Is it I didn't watch the whole interview. I saw some snippets.
Look, I think the big takeaways that came out of that, first of all, he was caught off guard by the AMD deal that came through with OpenAI. He didn't know about that
Blindsided.
He didn't say blindsided, but he did.
Unhappy about it?
Just said he thought it was interesting. It was very different than their deal. Took a bit of a swipe at the idea that they have to give away 10% of their company to have this happen.
Because it was a completely circular deal. They had
but the difference with his deal is that he's getting a stake in OpenAI. You know, where the pay to play on the other side is you got to give away 10% of your company to do it. And he took a bit of a swipe at that. Said it caught him off guard. But I think what you see are the deals that everybody is hooking up with at this point. He said if he could have bought more of OpenAI earlier, he wished he had. Right. He said the same thing about CoreWeave, said that he wished that he had a bigger stake in XAI. So all of those things saying, yeah, I wish I had more money to do with it. They've got about $240 billion in cash that they're going to kick off. And the question becomes, what do they do with that? You know, the capital expenditure plan that you put back, you can either invest in the company, you can acquire other companies, you can buy stakes in other companies, or you can give it back to the shareholders. And I think what he's trying to do, he said, is any and all of those things above, and also threw in the idea that maybe being part of the electricity solution would be too, because that's the limiting factor that they see in OpenAI at this point.
Did he ask about? Did he ask about?
Yeah, I think he missed you guys.
He didn't specifically say.
Hopefully he comes back soon when everybody's here.
I mean, I saw it, I was like, oh my God.
We were not allowed to promote it earlier, so it was.
Yeah, I wondered.
Yeah.
Because it kind of, it's like, whoa.
Yeah, we weren't allowed to promote it.
It's about 20 minutes too, wasn't it? Was it pretty?
It was 35 minutes.
It was?
Yeah.
I would give him as long as. Oh, maybe next time, Sorkin.
Well, they said half an hour, and I did not want to be disrespectful of the time constraints on that because we'd like him to come back.
If we base it on market cap and importance of the company,
we would let him go
straight through Squawk on the street, straight through Squawk, and right through halftime report. Could have given him the entire day.
If you missed our conversation with NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang, he was right on set. Check out yesterday's podcast for the full interview, the whole thing. It's in your feed just before today's episode. And next on Squawk Pod, both sides of the stalemate in Washington. First, Senate Majority Leader John Thune on where the Republicans are willing to give.
I think there perhaps is a pathway forward on that, but it doesn't happen while they are holding the federal government hostage in this shutdown.
Then House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries on Democrats standing firm.
We are simply not going to go along to get along the Republican effort to continue to gut the health care of the American people. This is a cost of living issue, and it's a life or death issue for millions of Americans.
This is Squawk Pod.
Stand Andrew by in 3, 2, 1. Up and Andrew. Cue. Ms. Mike.
You're watching Squawk Box right here on CNBC. I'm Andrew Sorkin along with Joe Kernen and Becky Quick. A lot of things going on this Thursday morning to tell you about.
We are now more than a week into the government shutdown, and the Senate has once again failed to pass a continuing resolution. Of course, you need 60 votes, so you need some help. Senate Majority Leader John Thune joins us now. Senator, Leader, it's always good to have you on. Peace might be breaking out.
Nice to see you, Joe.
Peace might be breaking out in the Middle East, but what I saw yesterday with some of the players on the floor, things seem like they're even getting worse between Republicans and Democrats on this shutdown situation.
Well, I think what's happening, Joe, is right now it's all about politics. And as Chuck Schumer pointed out in his interview yesterday, this is a big game for the Democrats. He actually said yesterday, every day this is getting better for us. I mean, do you think it's getting better for the troops that aren't going to get paid, the air traffic controllers that aren't going to get paid, for the Border Patrol agents that aren't going to get paid? This isn't a game. This is real. This is people's lives we're talking about. This is the families of the American people, and it's important to get the government open again. We give the Democrats an opportunity pretty much on a daily basis to actually vote to do that. And we have 55 senators, a majority, 55 out of 100 senators, who are voting to open the government. We need 5 more Democrats because, as you just pointed out, it takes 60 to do anything in the Senate.
Senator Fetterman, I guess rumor has it that he was in talking to you. How does this progress? Do you see getting to 60? Did he tell you he's talking to some of his colleagues, Democratic colleagues, about breaking away and maybe doing it? Or did he tell you exactly what type of commitments Republicans would need to make in terms of the subsidies, the Obamacare subsidies? Is there something sort of coming together you can tell us about?
Well, I talk to a number of Democrats on a regular basis, including Senator Fetterman, and Senator Fetterman has done what I think is the courageous thing and the right thing for the country, and that is voted consistently to open the government back up. But I'm hoping there are a number of Democrats there, Joe. There are conversations going on all the time. But if this is going to get solved, it's probably going to get solved organically by rank and file Democrats, because their leadership has no interest in a solution. When Chuck Schumer is saying this is getting better for us every day, that's not somebody who wants to see this get resolved. And they are pandering to the left-wing special interest groups out there who have demanded this and demanded this showdown with the President of the United States. And so we've got a bill, as I've said, that's passed the House, that's sitting at the desk in the Senate that we could pass today, put it on the President's desk, he would sign it into law, and this shutdown whole fiasco ends, and people can get back to work, and we can start paying the federal employees who are starting to miss paychecks.
Every shutdown's different. There should never be a shutdown. I agree with you on that, and Democrats know that, and they get high and mighty when Republicans say they're going to do it, but then they're engaging in exactly what they supposedly are against. But this one's different. It does involve some issues that strike deep to people, especially some low-income people that would see subsidies not cover what it used to cover for their health care. They could be left with very big increases. At the same time, Democrats remove the cap on individuals that make up to $500,000 a year on some of these pandemic era subsidies. So, I mean, it's broken. Something's wrong. I guess your argument would be this is not the time to fix it. Open the government and then we'll fix it.
Right. That's a year-end deadline. And by the way, that doesn't impact the low-income people you're talking about. These are enhanced subsidies. These are the COVID era subsidies. This is a COVID tax credit cliff created by the Democrats. They put the expiration date in place knowing full well that there would be a ton of pressure to try and extend it. But the truth is, what they're asking for here, Joe, is $1.5 trillion in new spending for free health care benefits to be extended to non-citizens. Those are all conditions of the counter proposal that they put out there, which can't get anywhere close to. That gets 47 votes in the Senate, doesn't get a majority in the House, and wouldn't be signed into law by the President. So the simple reality we have in front of us today is we have a bill at the desk that can open up the government. We can have the conversation about the premium tax credits and the issues that they are raising. And I've said multiple times, we're more than happy to do that. I think there perhaps is a pathway forward on that, but it doesn't happen while they are holding the federal government hostage in this shutdown.
I guess maybe I didn't mean low income, but there are some average people, not wealthy people, that would see some big increases, I think, and that's what has Republicans.
What would happen, Joe, is it would, if we didn't do anything, it would drop down to where it was before they put these COVID-era policies into effect, which would be 400% of the poverty level. So you're talking about 130 grand a year. Right now, with no income cap, there are people who are making $500,000, 600 grand a year who are getting subsidies from the federal government for these policies. So, obviously there is perhaps a solution there that we can work with, but we've got to have some reforms. You can't just open up the cap on this. You can't have lots of people who pay nothing, absolutely nothing, at least some copay, some deductible, something that they pay, because there are literally millions of people on these policies today who don't even know they're covered, because insurance companies are incentivized to auto-enroll them because they're getting direct payments from the federal government to do it.
Well, there's the reason that so many of these premiums are going up with Obamacare isn't just because of the expiration of the subsidies, and that's part of the problem. The overall ACA needs to be looked at, and at this point, it seems like the president is starting. Is he starting to put some pressure to get something done? And I won't say fold, but to concede to the Democrats, that the way the system is right now, you do need to probably increase subsidies at some point because it's just not working. I mean, healthcare, Obamacare premiums don't pay for the kind of healthcare you're getting right now. It has to be subsidized.
And partly because Obamacare, at its core, is inflationary. It's been driving up costs. I mean, the fundamental problem here is the underlying program, which again needs to be reformed. And the president wants to do that. The president would like to overhaul Obamacare and give people health insurance that is higher quality and more affordable. But you've got Obamacare now embedded for the last 15 years. The Democrats, again, enhanced these subsidies a few years ago, so there's no income cap on it. And so, yeah, frankly, I think these are all conversations that are ripe to be had, and I think the president is more than open to sitting down and working on solutions that would improve quality and affordability for people in this country when it comes to health care. But part of the problem you have is the Obamacare program in the first place, and everything that goes with it has an inflationary impact on health care costs. So health care costs have been going up. They're going to go up irrespective of what happens on these enhanced subsidies. They were going up anyway. But frankly, I think that's a problem that needs to be addressed, needs to be looked at, and we're willing to do that. But you can't do it while you're holding the federal government hostage.
The $1.5 trillion reminds me of the original Green New Deal. They would settle for much less. To just extend the subsidies, it's like, isn't it? It's about $450 billion over 10 years, isn't it? And I guess if there was some kind of compromise on that, are the Democrats open to at least having some type of restrictions on exactly who, changing the pandemic era subsidies so that it comes down to under, because Republicans aren't going to agree to $450 billion added into a CR. Just that's not the way it works, does it?
Yeah. To keep the government open for 7 weeks, right? Yeah, no. Well, and I think there are reasonable Democrats out there who are open to some of the reforms that have been suggested. I mean, the question you have to ask yourself is, should the American taxpayer be subsidizing people who are making $500,000 a year when it comes to their insurance? And so, I mean, I think this thing, and the very fact that it costs $400 billion to extend it, suggests that this thing ought to be ripe for reform. And I think there are some Democrats out there who'd be willing to do that. I mean, we keep getting, there's, like I said, there are conversations going on. The challenge they have is their leadership is so beholden right now to these far left special interest groups who basically are calling the shots. And, we keep hearing about this No Kings protest that's going to happen in Washington, D.C. on October 18th, and why the Democrats can't open up the government before that because they'll curry anger from all these left-wing groups. I mean, I think that's what's driving this at the leadership level, but I'm hoping that rank-and-file Democrats will come to their senses. We need 5 more is all. We've got a majority. We have 55 United States senators out of 100 who are voting to open up the government. The House has already done that. The president's willing to sign it. The only thing standing between the government being opened up again and us having a conversation about this is 5 Democrats coming forward and doing the right thing for the country.
So you think, in your view, Leader Schumer is not going to come in and say, okay, I see the light, we're going to go ahead and do this. You think he's going to stick with this is a great issue for us, and Trump shut down the government because he wants to cut everyone's health care. He'll stick to that, and you'll be able to get 5, and he can maintain his position, and you'll get 5 Democrats eventually that say, okay, we'll do it. Is that how it's going to end in your view?
I think that's probably, I certainly hope that's how it ends. I don't think it's going to end with Chuck Schumer or the Democrat leadership, because as I said, he told the press yesterday that every day this is getting better for us. This is a political game for these guys, and I understand they've got these outside groups and this left-wing constituency that is clamoring to fight with President Trump, but this isn't about the game. This is these are the real-life consequences that happen to the American people if their government doesn't act in a responsible way.
Okay, Majority Leader Thune, we have Hakeem Jeffries coming on. The House already passed it. It should be Schumer coming on. I mean, we're glad to have Hakeem Jeffries on, but the House has already passed it. He talks a lot about it as well, but it's really in the Senate.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's a Senate issue. We need a handful of responsible, reasonable Democrats to work with us to get this done. But that doesn't stop the House Democrats from continuing to hold press conferences and post a lot of goofy social media content.
Yeah, saw some yesterday. All right, Majority Leader Thune, thanks as always.
Now we're going to get some reaction and his thoughts about where this all heads from House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. Good morning to you. We'll start there. What do you make of those comments?
Well, our view is that we will sit down anytime, any place with anyone here at the Capitol or back at the White House, including with the president, in order to reopen the government, find a bipartisan path forward to enacting a spending agreement that actually meets the needs of the American people and improves their quality of life as opposed to hurting everyday Americans. And of course, anything that we do has to decisively address the Republican healthcare crisis that is real. It's not fake. It's not irrelevant. It's not random. It's a real healthcare crisis, including the urgent need to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits for tens of millions of Americans who are about to experience dramatically increased premiums, copays, and deductibles because of the Republican refusal to act.
Right. I appreciate your position on the healthcare issue. The question I have is, there's clearly a game of chicken going on here, and I think it was expressed in many ways by Senator Schumer in terms of how strategically there is a view among Democrats that the longer you can hold out, perhaps the better chance you have either to get what you want or to push the Republicans into some kind of other place. And my question to you is how you think about that, given the trade-off, of course, which is all of the government workers which are currently being furloughed and not being paid.
I think that Leader Schumer and Senate Democrats have taken a strong and principled position for all of the right reasons in the face of this Republican healthcare crisis. Remember, this is something that has been ongoing from the very beginning of this Congress. The largest cut to Medicaid in American history, forcing, we believe, 14 million people off of health care coverage. Hospitals and nursing homes and community-based health clinics are closing right now, all throughout the country, including in rural America, because of what Republicans did in their one big ugly bill. Medicare is facing a possible cut of $536 billion at the end of this year if Congress doesn't act, connected to that toxic piece of legislation that Republicans enacted, which hurts everyday Americans in order to reward their billionaire donors with massive tax breaks. And by the way, those tax breaks were made permanent. And then now we're facing the Republican refusal to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits in an environment where the cost of living is already too high, and Donald Trump has broken his promise to lower costs on day one. And by the way, on top of all of that, medical research has been effectively ended in the United States of America. And in this Republican appropriations bill on the House side, they want to cut funding for the Centers for Disease Control by $1.7 billion and cut funding for the National Institute of Health by $500 million. This is extraordinary stuff. And we are simply not going to go along to get along the Republican effort to continue to gut the health care of the American people. This is a cost of living issue, and it's a life or death issue for millions of Americans.
Senator, but we're talking about a continuing resolution to keep the government open and then going into the normal appropriations process. I mean, there was an election, and the Republicans were put in a position where they were able to pass the big, beautiful bill, or you call it the big, ugly bill. To then say, we don't like any of that, so we're going to shut down the government until you take back all the things that you duly passed through legislation. If Republicans had tried to do that to the Inflation Reduction Act or the any of the acts that Biden and that administration have passed, if they said we're going to shut down the government because we don't like any of those things you did, we're going to not pay our military, we're going to, not allow the government to reopen until you do what we want. After an election where the American people put Democrats in power, you'd be going crazy. You'd be going crazy about using a shutdown of the government with a continuing resolution to get what you want just because you don't like what the Republicans did. It's not how it works. It's bad. It's bad precedent, and it's just clear. And you're talking about the House. You've already passed this. The Senate is who we're talking about, and they have a bill which will reopen the government right now with 5 more Democrats.
What is bad precedent is the Republican refusal to engage in bipartisan negotiations. What is bad precedent is the Republicans embarking on a my way or the highway approach from the very beginning of this Congress. Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. Joe, you're exactly right. So if the government shuts down, they've made the decision to shut the government down. And they can reopen it right now if they chose to, with a rule change in the Senate. But I just explained it. The reality is they want to keep the government closed. Cruelty from the very beginning of this administration has been the point. And the responsible thing to do is to sit down and negotiate a bipartisan path forward to address a very real healthcare crisis that's upon us right now. Open enrollment starts on November 1st.
Can you do those negotiations while the government is reopened? I think that's the offer that's been on the table. We did hear the House Speaker, Mike Johnson, talking about how, look, he passed a clean CR. There's not really much for him to politic in because there's nothing to take out. Any Republican pork that they pushed into this to take out of it to offer as a way of getting around this. Can you reopen the government and have these conversations if there's a willing party on the other side, which it sounds like there is if you talk to some of the Republicans who see this as an issue in their district as well?
Well, certainly Marjorie Taylor Greene has made clear that it's a very real issue. It's an issue that Republicans have ignored throughout this year, and it's an issue that needs to be addressed right now. Mike Johnson has made the representation, including at that White House meeting that we had last week, after Chuck Schumer and I reached out to demand that we have the conversation. Unfortunately, it took place literally a day before the government shut down because Republicans have refused to engage in bipartisan negotiations or even conversations up until this point. And our view is, what Johnson said is that health care is an irrelevant extraneous issue. No, it's not an extraneous issue, it's a central issue. And we need to deal with it right now. And we're willing to sit down and have that conversation. We want to reopen the government. But you're not going to fix this. That's a negotiation that is going to take a very long time. Employees, including the military, are not going to get paid on October 15th. Can you have these negotiations? And that's an issue that we believe should. And that's an issue that we believe should be dealt with respect to our troops in a bipartisan way, in a manner that it has been dealt with in the past in previous shutdowns,
in the past, you've had appropriations
in
bills
October
that had already
of
been
2013.
For the right.
I'm talking about in October of 2013, where as a standalone issue, the military pay for our families and men and women in uniform was dealt with. That's what I'm making reference to. So who should get paid besides the military? You think the TSA agents should get paid? Where does the line stop for who gets paid and who doesn't? The law requires everyone to be paid, and unfortunately, Donald Trump has once again suggested that no one is going to get paid, which to me is consistent with the efforts to undermine the rule of law that we've seen from this administration from the very beginning. Listen, our position just remains clear. We just want to have a serious bipartisan discussion about reopening the government and enacting a spending agreement that meets the needs of the American people. And we disagree with the notion that the March partisan continuing resolution, which they put before us once again, is actually clean. No, it's not. We opposed it in March because it represented, in our view, an attack on veterans, an attack on nutritional assistance, an attack on women, infants, and children funding, an attack on housing affordability, and an attack on health care. That's not a clean continuing resolution in our view, and it was not bipartisan. Certainly that wasn't the case in the House.
But Leader Jeffries, I mean, we know that there are, varying opinions on both sides of the aisle, sharply differing opinions on how to do everything. And you've just outlined a lot of things that Democrats, a lot of problems they have with Republicans. Republicans have a laundry list of things that happened during the Biden administration that they feel the same way about. And I guarantee if they had shut down the government and said, we want a bipartisan talk on doing all this, but what Republicans want, Democrats, their hair would have been on fire. Democrats would have said that's not the way to do it. You can't do it through a government shutdown. And now you're employing that same tactic on what I'm sure you feel are very important issues, but it just looks like, politics as usual to a lot of people.
I think this is very personal for the American people who are at risk of literally experiencing thousands of dollars in a potential increase in their health insurance in a manner that will bankrupt many folks or deprive them of access to health care. We're talking about a married couple of two individuals, for instance, that makes $88,000 a year, currently receives tax credits from the Affordable Care Act and pays about $8,000 a year. Now, this is a situation that's already unaffordable, but their premiums may actually triple to $24,000 a year, unable to afford that. That's what we're talking about. And this is a very real thing that's happening right now.
We're not going to fix Obamacare or the AC. There's a lot of issues that are not just the expiration of the subsidies that are causing a lot of these problems. And you're not going to be able to fix it and negotiate it between now and reopening the government. You got to reopen the government first and then get.
We made very clear at the beginning of September that we will find a bipartisan path forward to keep the government open and enact a spending agreement that meets the needs of the American people. What we also said is we will not support a partisan Republican spending bill that continues to gut the health care of the American people. This wasn't an 11th hour position. It was a position that we articulated early on, and unfortunately, Republicans chose a my way or the highway approach that they are continuing right now in the Senate.
Initially, this is the same funding that was already passed by both houses.
I explained that Democrats in the House strongly opposed this spending bill in March because it hurt the American people.
Right.
And this current bill actually excludes about $500 million in funding in public safety grants that are provided to support local law enforcement. I don't have enough time to go through all of the problems with this particular partisan Republican spending bill, but they are numerous. And they all hurt the American people as opposed to helping the American people.
I'm really afraid to ask you about Mamdani. Leader Jeffries,
I usually ask you, so I thought we'd let Joe do it this time.
I don't want you to bristle. I've seen what happens when some other people have asked you about that. But you live in New York. I mean, it matters. New York City. Can you at least tell me whether you'd vote? I guess you're not going to tell me that. But are you going to endorse him anytime soon? Or what about Senator Schumer?
Well, listen, Senator Schumer, of course, Leader Schumer speaks for himself. New York City is the greatest city in the world. I love the city. I was born and raised in the city, raised a family in the city of New York, now proud to represent Brooklyn in the United States Congress. When Mayor Adams decided that he would not run for re-election, I issued a statement making it clear that I would have more to say about the mayor's race prior to early voting starting at the end of this month. and I intend to make sure that I keep that promise. But we're in the middle of a government shutdown right now. Donald Trump and Republicans have shut the government down. People are being hurt. We've got to find a path forward to reopen the government and to address the Republican healthcare crisis. And as it relates to us, right, as Democrats, we are just united in fighting to make life better for working class Americans, everyday Americans, and middle class Americans. And it's real progress that needs to be made for us in New York City and beyond the borders of New York City and throughout the country. And that's what we intend to do.
Well, okay. Good to have both sides on, and we hope we can continue to do this. I don't know if we get anywhere.
We love having these conversations. Yep. We hope that we can end it. We hope these conversations will come to an end soon. Sooner or later.
We promised viewers a deal today, Leader, and looks like
may go through the weekend.
May have to. Can you come back tomorrow and we'll get it done? Maybe that.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Tease will be next.
Still to come, if phase 1 of a deal between Israel and Hamas is underway, what's in store for phases 2 and 3, and who takes over leadership in Gaza? Council on Foreign Relations President Michael Froman joins us.
Hamas can't do it, and the Palestinian Authority, as it currently stands, can't do it either. And so they need to create some new structure.
Squawk Pod will be right back. You're listening to Squawk Pod from CNBC. Here's Becky Quick.
President Trump says that Israel and Hamas have agreed to an initial phase of a plan to end the war in Gaza. Joining us right now is former U.S. Trade Representative Michael Froman. He's currently president of the Council on Foreign Relations. And Michael, this is monumental at this point. Celebrations broke out not just among Israeli families of the hostages, but also among Palestinians yesterday on news of this. How much is riding on this? How much hope do you have on this? How likely is this to go ahead?
Well, first of all, I think this is an important step in terms of getting the hostages, the live hostages out, hopefully all the hostages out of Gaza, getting humanitarian aid in, 400 trucks a day to come in, having the beginning of some of the Israeli withdrawal out of the Rafah area, out of Gaza City, and I think it should be celebrated as an important development. The question is down the road, will this then lead to phase 2, phase 3, where Hamas agrees to give up its weapons, agrees not to participate in the governance of Gaza, an international security force comes together, and some governance structure is put in place to begin to reconstruct Gaza. But the step 1 itself is very important.
The Israeli cabinet still has to sign off on this today. There's been at least one member who I know has said he probably won't vote for it, but there's a lot of pressure on them. I anticipate that this will be passed.
I think that's right. Even if members of his own government, and he has a minority government right now, Netanyahu does, Lapid has said that they will support him either way, and so this should be able to get through.
What has to happen in order for phase 2? Walk us through phase 2, phase 3, and what has to happen to get us there.
First, the phase 1 has to be fully implemented, and both sides have to have confidence that the other is actually adhering to the agreement. I think the next stages are harder because effectively President Trump is asking Hamas to stop being Hamas, to give up its weapons and to give up its role in governing Gaza, and that's a fundamental change. They're under a lot of pressure from the other Arab states, and so that's a positive new development there. And then the other pieces need to come into place as well. An international security force of Arab forces and others, the beginnings of some governance structure to put in place there. Those are going to take a longer period of time. But if they can implement phase 1, if they can build confidence that both sides are serious about moving forward, then there's hope for phase 2 and 3.
If Hamas does agree to effectively shut itself down and take itself out of the running of Gaza, who steps in to fill that void? That's
a big question. I mean, what people have said is that Hamas can't do it, and the Palestinian Authority, as it currently stands, can't do it either. And so they need to create some new structure, Palestinian technocrats under some board that Tony Blair and President Trump and others, may put in place to oversee it. But I think that these are all new questions that haven't yet been fully fleshed out.
The other players in the Middle East, the other countries there, that's what you mentioned, the pressure that came from them to make this happen. Who are the key players there? What needs to happen to make sure that they continue to put that pressure on?
Well, look, Qatar, Saudi, UAE, Egypt has played an important role here. A number of countries have put pressure on. There isn't any great love lost between those countries and Hamas. to begin with. But I think what has come, particularly after the Israeli attack on Doha, was that the fundamental situation evolved, where Qatar wanted guarantees from the U.S. for security, and the price of those guarantees was then putting the ultimate pressure on Hamas to come to the table and agree to this.
Let me ask you an economic question. Of all the Middle Eastern countries, if this all happens and there is stability, who wins?
Yeah, yet to be seen who's going to participate in this. Is the money going to come from the Gulf, from the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar? Will a more normal relationship with Egypt continue to evolve? Will they benefit from trade back and forth if there's real normalization between Gaza and the rest of the region? So it remains to be seen. They're going to need a lot of money coming in. It's going to take years, if not decades, to rebuild.
But there's always been a little bit of a risk premium to dealing with, frankly, all the countries in the Middle East. Does this change that?
I think stability in the region certainly changes the risk profile of the region. You've already seen, I mean, over the last several years, just think about how different the region is now than it was before, with the destruction of a lot of these proxies, with the fall of Syria, with the neutering of Iran in many respects. It's become a more stable region. You've seen, obviously, investments flowing back and forth between the U.S., UAE, Saudi, et cetera. This, I think, further stabilizes it if it can be implemented. And the question will be, it's also very possible the phase one gets implemented, hostages are released, humanitarian goes aid, but the war continues at some ongoing level, and that again creates greater uncertainty.
It's unfathomable to think. I mean, the 21st century is pretty nice. It's a pretty nice place for the West, is it not? I mean, don't they want that? Can you ever imagine the day where you think of the Middle East that way?
It has changed so much, as you said. The security situation has changed, the economic situation, social situation in some of these countries.
Saudi Arabia, you think it's
Saudi Arabia.
It's what we've been. It's the spring that we were hoping for. I don't know whether you refer to it. Obviously, not all Arab countries, but the Arab Spring that we wanted. How long ago was that already?
2010 or so.
So 15. 12. See, things go. So that was 15 years ago. I mean, I'm afraid to even hope for it. But can you imagine? I mean, it'd be a really robust place, business, everything.
And there's a lot of activity going on.
And it's a good century to be in instead of being stuck. I don't know what century a lot of the Middle East has been stuck in.
Still a long way to go, particularly on the political side, but you're absolutely right. On the economic, on the social side, there's been significant progress, and it's been very good for the region and for the rest of the world.
How willing will Israel be in terms of going along with something once they have the hostages back, though? How much room will they give to the idea of Palestinian statehood and whatever else might come along with that?
I think it really depends on how fully the ceasefire is implemented. If Hamas continues to make rocket attacks, or there continues to be tension across whatever the demarcation line is, it gives Israel an excuse to go back in and
say we're not going to do this
and continue to try and finish the job, so to speak. Also, they're under tremendous pressure from President Trump and the U.S. President Trump basically told the Israelis they had to stop bombing. Made Netanyahu apologize for bombing in Doha, and brought him to a table in a way that was quite powerful. So if that pressure, I think, is going to continue to be necessary to keep Israel from the U.S. perspective, but also Hamas from the Arabs' perspective on track.
Is that different enough for this time? And I go back to Clinton and Arafat and what we thought was real promise and potential at that point. What went wrong then, and how do we prevent that from happening again?
I think President Trump has sort of inserted himself in a way to say, okay, he's got a relationship with Netanyahu, with the Israelis, to be able to deliver perhaps more than previous presidents have been able to. In the past, there's been a lot of incentives. Here, he's used a lot of stick.
Okay. Michael, thank you. Michael Froman.
And that is Squawk Pod for today. As always, thanks for listening. Squawk Box is hosted by Joe Kernen, Becky Quick, and Andrew Ross Sorkin. Tune in weekday mornings on CNBC at 6 Eastern, or follow Squawk Pod wherever you get your podcasts. Share this podcast with a friend, too. Have a great day. We'll meet you right back here tomorrow.
We are clear. Thanks, guys.